Whew. A $34 4K action camera? Well, we've got to check this out. The Neewer G1. Coming at ya. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad. If I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Man, it feels so good to be checking out action cameras again. Not a camera, not a gimbal, some good old-fashioned mountain biking, running around, complaining about SD card ports, action cameras. First off, I want to say thanks to Harold Augusto for informing me of the existence of the G1. I had no idea. He shot at me on Twitter. Thanks very much, Harold. For the last 6 years or so, action cameras have absolutely fascinated me, and I love being able to make videos showing how awesome, or less so, they can be. Neewer, as a brand, makes a bunch of budget-friendly camera accessories. I myself, my ring light's Neewer, I have an LED light from them, one of my mic stands is from them, and I generally enjoy their products. I've never seen them make a camera before, so I had to try out their action camera. First things first, let's get this sucker out of the box. For real. Before we get too excited and start seeing if we're going to break it today, let's cover some of the basic specs to get us all on the same page. Now, I couldn't really find much about it, and that makes me nervous when I can't find the specs easily listed. That's generally not a good sign. The G1 is a 4K capable action camera. It has a 12 megapixel camera capable of recording 4K at 25 frames per second. We might have some trouble with that later. It can also record in 2.7K at 30 frames per second and 1080p at 30 and 60 frames per second. As action is better in higher frames per second, 1080p at 60 FPS will be what we are recording with today. It comes with a 1050 milliamp hour lithium ion battery, and it can take micro SD cards up to 32 gigabytes. There's nothing about the sensor and processor, so don't expect much. I also then assume that this is interpolated 4K. It's not actual 4K. It's a smaller image that they're blowing up into a 4K frame. It is also waterproof down to 98 feet in the included case. Okay, now it's time to get serious. We're gonna take this camera and compare it against the most important set of metrics known to mankind, and those are the rock-solid pillars of action. First up, ease of use. I hate an action camera, I guess gear in general too. You want to reach a zen-like state of being where you and the camera become one with the action, and thinking about what the camera's gonna do fades from your mind. In my opinion, the best way for an action camera to achieve this state is in using a very responsive and intuitive touchscreen interface, or in the case of the original Yi action camera, you only give us 3 buttons so we can't mess it up too bad. The G1 does have an LCD screen on the back that can make seeing what you're filming easier, but the menu system is terrible. It's one of the worst I've ever used. In my mind, the less buttons you have to press, the better, and the Neewer seems to take the opposite approach, where you need to have lots of button presses to do something simple like changing your resolution. So many button presses. Pillar number 2, durability. Now, if there's one of the pillars that an action camera just has to do, it is not fall apart when the action starts. If it can't take a hit, you've obviously wasted your money and should have gotten a couple of cups of coffee instead. Okay, right off the bat, this thing feels cheap, super cheap in fact, and this actually reminds me very much of the Ape Man action camera I reviewed over the winter. It has a very cheap plasticky feeling that I'm not very sure would survive a drop. Not only that, but a pet peeve of mine is when action cameras have ports that do not have doors. Now, I'm not saying that everything has to be waterproof without a case to be useful, though that would be nice. But leaving these open basically render the camera useless for gimbal work or anytime even a little bit of rain threatens. Now, on a positive note, however, it does come with an included case, so it's not a total loss in the durability department, but it does limit the G1 and how I would use it in the future. Pillar number 3, compatibility with GoPro style gimbals and accessories. Action cameras can absolutely look great on their own. Look at the Sony FDR X3000 for example. However, to get the most out of them and to get the best footage possible, it's best if you're able to fit them into an existing ecosystem of accessories. And for me, this basically means gimbals and mounts. The G1 does fit very nicely into my Feiyutech G5, and it works perfectly fine in a gimbal. Now, one of the minor faults of the G1 is it doesn't have a tripod mount on the camera itself. However, they rectify this by including the previously mentioned waterproof case that can be adapted to work with regular tripods, and it also comes with this half case kind of thing with a 1/4-inch tripod mount on the bottom, so it's salvageable to use it with regular camera equipment and not just GoPro stuff, which I do like. Pillar number 4, decent, not perfect image quality. For $34, I am not expecting the world. I generally don't rake action cameras over the coals for image quality, unless it's just absolutely abysmal, especially at this price point. I will say that it is functional, but the footage is pretty rough. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of grain, there's a wicked fisheye distortion, and it's not the best, but like I said, it's $34. And this is an audio test of the Neewer G1. Audio test 1, 2, 3, 4. Audio test 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, hopefully the audio is synced up. Something I find that happens on these cheaper action cameras is that the audio and your mouth don't sync up, but here's hoping. And just for clarification, this thing, it's super slippery. I could totally do it. But a very big negative for those of us that live in North America is this 25 frames per second isn't going to be so hot for us. That's a PAL frame rate, so it's fine for you folks across the pond, but it's going to do some weird things for us. Better to stick with the 30 and 60 frames per second options. Again, the image quality is acceptable for the price point, but at some point you have to find out if that price is acceptable for the image quality for you. Like, is this just throwing money away at a cheaper camera when you could save up for more? We'll talk about that more in the conclusion. Pillar number 5, stabilization. I love stable footage, and I love cameras that have built-in stabilization. This doesn't even have fake vibration control, so we can skip it. Next! And we're back. So what, right? So should you get a Neewer G1 action camera? If you only have $34 to spend, at least it comes with the full kit, so you will be able to use it straight out of the box. You're not gonna have to buy any additional accessories. I mean, let's be honest, when we are looking at cameras for this price point, they are all basically the exact same camera. They just rebrand it. 8-man, Neewer, it's basically the same camera. It's really going to boil down to what overall kit you want and what accessories you want starting out. My personal recommendation would be to save up a little extra money and get something with at least a Sony or Panasonic sensor and stay in the 1080p range until you can save up at least $150 for a decent action camera. Thanks for watching.